As we keep coming up the row here, most of the books of the Bible have their own scroll as well, but not all. Like I said, you've got the Megillah. There's actually 2 books on this scroll, and there's 2 books on that scroll. That's 4, and then Esther's 5. That'd be the 5 books. But here's Chronicles, and you don't have 1st and 2nd. You just got Chronicles. Here's Ezekiel, Daniel, Job, Proverbs, and Psalms. Let me pause. These 3 books right here are called the books of truth. Why? Well, it's a simple explanation, but it kind of leaves you to ponder the fact that if these are the books of truth, what are the rest of these? The books of non-truth? No, these are all the books of truth. They're all true, but these 3 specifically are known as the books of truth. The first one being Job. Job is pronounced Yob in Hebrew, and it begins with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, an aleph. Then you have Proverbs. Proverbs is pronounced Mishli in Hebrew, and it begins with the very middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet, a mem. And then you have Psalms. Psalms is pronounced Tehillim. It begins with the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, a tav. So you've got aleph, mem, tav. From the very first through the middle to the very end, to the very last. These are all known as the books of truth, because if you take that first letter I just mentioned to you, aleph, mem, and tav, put them together, you get another Hebrew word. That Hebrew word is emet. Emet means truth. As I told you, here's 5 Torah scrolls. Then over here on this side of the Torahs, you have Isaiah. And let me mention, one of the greatest discoveries in history up till now even, and I'll qualify it to now, even though this very moment's going to happen for days and weeks and years to come. But the greatest discovery ever has been the Dead Sea Scrolls. They weren't all scrolls. They were pieces of scrolls. Most of them just fragments, they call. But there was one real scroll, complete, found. It was the book of Isaiah. It's like 98% intact. All of the rest of them were just little bits and pieces of them. Some of them had turned completely to ashes because of time and atmosphere. But that book of Isaiah was carbon dated to 2,700 years. So 2,700 years ago, that book of Isaiah said what it said. If you were to take that 2,700-year-old book of Isaiah, put it on the floor up here, and unroll it, and underneath it or above it, you unroll my 350-year-old Isaiah, you know what you're going to find? You're going to find an exact duplicate of the 2. I don't mean they're going to say the same thing. They're going to be the same thing. If you go to page 3 and go to the middle letter in the 4th line, whatever letter that is, it can be the same on both scrolls. They're not just the same letter, they're in the same place. They're identical. It's unbelievable. And I don't know why or how, but that's one of the reasons God had a chosen people, because they were so stiff-necked, they were so precise, so accurate, so hard-nosed. They were almost Texans, I guess. That they're exact. They refuse to make a mistake. I'm going to pause talking about the rest of these scrolls right here, because when a writer, a scribe, who's called a sofer, writes a Torah scroll, it takes him about a year to do so. He goes out from his house and he collects a couple of things. This is called a gall nut. A gall nut is akin to an acorn in the way it looks. It's just a real hard-nosed piece, whatever it is. It's formed when a gall wasp stings a leaf of a tree and plants an egg. The tree will build this barrier around that egg. When that little gall wasp inside matures, he will bore his way out from the inside and fly away. This is called gum arabic. It's a sap from a gum tree. In this case, it came from an acacia tree in Jerusalem. These sophers, scribes, will collect these two elements and they will pound them into a powder. Boil a little water and add this mixture. You know what they get? They get the ink that they write these with. It's really a dye, lasts longer, about 200 years before it has to be renewed. Today, what most scribes do is not write scrolls, as they renew scrolls. They'll take scrolls much like what I've got, and they will trace over the letters to renew them, to make them more easily understood and readable. So, not a talent I have or a patience I want. When they finish writing a Torah scroll, the very first thing a scribe does is count the letters. You see, Hebrew is a really different language. 22 letters, all consonants, no vowels. That's like this. In your mind, without speaking out loud, think of your first name. Remove the vowels. Now pronounce your first name. Is it the same? Maybe, maybe not. But very, very difficult. Very hard. Not only are there no vowels in Hebrew language, there's no numbers in Hebrew. Because every letter is a number. That being said, every word has a numerical value. So your name, spelt out without vowels, has a numerical value. I think one of the things about seeing The Lion King, if you'll remember, probably most of you did see it. Ruth. When the little baby lion was born, given to his father, who says, "This is my son." And he called him by name. So now everybody, the entire kingdom, knows this kid lion's name. And I think it was the way in Jewish times. They would hold their children up and say, "This is my boy, my girl, my child, my offspring, blood of my blood." And they would tell you his name or her. That's how everybody knew. Of course, the question now comes is, how do you write it? And that becomes a whole new problem. When a sofer finishes writing a scroll, a Torah scroll, he counts the letters. Not only does he say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and counts the letters all the way to the end of the scroll, but he examines every letter to make sure it's the right size, the right distance from the one before it, the right distance from the one after it, and that it's the exact letter that it's supposed to be. So it's not like it takes him only that much time to count it. He's got to study it to make sure it's the right thing. He does have to make sure that it has 304,805 letters in a Torah scroll. In every Torah scroll. 304,805 letters. When he gets through, he hands it to a friend who's a scribe, and his friend counts the letters. And when he gets through, he hands it to a third guy who counts the letters. And they all have to agree, or they have to go back and find their mistake. And they have to fix it one way or another, or start over. I remember writing research papers in high school. Nobody wanted to start over. Nobody wanted to write the thing in the first place. Can you imagine writing a Torah scroll? Or should I say, can you imagine writing a Bible? Help yourself.